Hey, welcome back. Episode 57, Cognitive Flexibility. Excuse me. What? Here's the thing, and we have all been here. You know that moment after a meeting where everyone says, yes, such an exciting direction. And then nobody speaks for 2 seconds? You could hear a pin drop. The slide deck is still on screen. The new strategy has a name. Someone has mentioned AI 4 times, just to look cool. Your manager is smiling like this is all very obvious. And you are nodding. But inside, something is recalculating. Not just your tasks, but also your relevance, your timeline. The sense of whether the thing you were good at yesterday still counts today. That tiny internal recalculation has become one of the defining feelings of modern life. We do it at work. We do it online. We do it in relationships, especially with our identity. We are constantly being asked to update. And the official phrase for this is cognitive flexibility. Posh, right? But that phrase does not capture the weird emotional cost of becoming adaptable, because emotionally it does not always feel like flexibility. Sometimes it feels like whiplash. Sometimes it's like being asked to become a new version of yourself before you have finished understanding the last one. Cognitive flexibility, in the simplest sense, is the ability to shift your thinking when the situation changes, to see things from another angle, to let go of one plan and try another, to not collapse when reality refuses to match the version you prepared for. But the lived experience of it? That is much messier. Because changing your mind is rarely just intellectual. It can feel embarrassing. It can feel disloyal. Or like admitting that the version of you who believed something before was naive, or outdated, or too certain. And nobody tells you how much of adulthood is quietly learning how to release ideas you once built your personality around. The most exhausting part of change is not learning the new thing. It is grieving the person who was good at the old thing. That is the emotional truth underneath cognitive flexibility. I know about that, and anyone pivoting will do as well. It asks you to stay open in a world that keeps punishing people for being unfinished. At work, this shows up in tiny ways. You finally learn the system, the workflow, the meeting rhythm, the weird internal language everyone uses. You become good at it. Then suddenly there is a new platform, a new shiny AI tool, a new strategy deck, a new leadership priority, a new phrase everyone starts repeating like it came down from the sky. And you are expected to adapt without appearing unsettled. You are supposed to be curious but not confused. Fast but not frantic. Flexible but still deeply competent. So, you smile on the video call or decide you're having a bad hair day and your camera is off. You say, yeah, that makes sense. Then, after the meeting, you sit there for a moment longer than usual. Laptop open, calendar full, Slack still blinking, and you try to understand whether your role just changed, whether your value just shifted, whether the thing you were praised for last quarter still matters. That is not just workflow change. That is emotional weather, and AI has made this weather even stranger. Because now the thing asking you to adapt is not just a new app or a new manager. It's now a machine that can imitate parts of your thinking. It can draft the email, summarize the meeting, generate the campaign idea, make the image, clean up the code, suggest the strategy. And suddenly the question becomes less, can I use this tool? Right, even when you can, you still ask it. And more. What part of me is still mine when the tool can do something that used to feel like proof that I was capable? A designer opens an AI image generator and sees 20 directions in 30 seconds. A junior analyst asks a chatbot to explain the model they were supposed to spend all afternoon understanding. A writer watches a paragraph appear instantly and feels both relief and insult. Not because the tool is evil, not because the person is fragile, but because identity is often attached to effort. And when effort changes, the self has to renegotiate. The internet has trained us for this in another way too. Like, online. Everyone is constantly revising themselves in public. 1 month, you are supposed to have a niche. The next month, niches are dead. 1 month, everyone is romanticizing slow living. The next, everyone is building personal monopolies. 1 week, the internet rewards vulnerability. The next, it turns vulnerability into content strategy. So people learn to shapeshift. A creator changes their tone because the algorithm stopped listening. A founder changes their pitch because investors have a new obsession. Professional folks change their LinkedIn language because the market has changed what confidence is supposed to sound like. Even dating has this strange flexibility now. Yikes. You are supposed to know your boundaries, but stay open. Know what you want, but not be rigid. Be independent, but emotionally available. Have standards, but not a checklist. Be self-aware, but not too intense. easygoing but not careless, ambitious but not unavailable. Everyone is trying to be adaptable without becoming unrecognizable to themselves. And that is the tension. Because flexibility sounds like softness, but sometimes it requires a very specific kind of strength. The strength to say, I was wrong, without turning your whole past self into a villain. The strength to say, I need to learn, without mistaking that for failure. To be able to say, this no longer fits, even when it once gave you status, belonging, or a sense of control. But somewhere in the middle of this, the idea has to shift, because not all flexibility is wisdom. Right. Sometimes what we call adaptability is just panic with better branding. So we call ourselves open-minded when we are actually just exhausted from defending a preference. Sometimes we keep changing direction because stillness would force us to hear what we actually want. So maybe cognitive flexibility is not about becoming endlessly available to change. Maybe it is not about bending until nothing in you has shape. Could it be real flexibility, the kind in knowing what can move and what should not? That distinction matters because modern life rewards the person who can update fast. New tool? Learn it. New trend? Understand it. New market? Position yourself. New cultural mood? Adjust the language. And yes, there is intelligence in that. There is survival in that. There is creativity too. But there is also a quiet danger in becoming too easy to rearrange. If every new signal changes your sense of self, then flexibility becomes another form of instability. You start mistaking motion for growth, responsiveness for wisdom, relevance for truth. And suddenly, you are not adapting because you are alive to the world. You are adapting because you are afraid the world will stop choosing you. That is the part we do not talk about enough. The fear underneath the pivot, the fear of becoming obsolete, the fear of being the person who did not get it fast enough, the fear of watching people move with a fluency you had to build manually, the fear of realizing that the rules you worked so hard to master were never permanent. And maybe this is why cognitive flexibility feels so personal. Because it is not just asking, can you change your thinking? It is asking, can you loosen your grip on the version of yourself that your old thinking protected? That is a harder question. There is a particular kind of maturity in letting that person exist without shame, not mocking them, not deleting them, not pretending you were always more evolved than you were. Just saying, that was me then. This is what I know now, and I am allowed to move. That might be the deepest version of cognitive flexibility, not constant reinvention, not endless openness, not becoming whatever the moment rewards, but the ability to survive with new information without needing to protect every old version of yourself. To let reality interrupt you, not destroy you, interrupt you. A real person is not a fixed thesis. A real person is a living draft. And maybe changing your mind does not always mean you were fake before. Sometimes it means you were paying attention. That sentence feels important now, because we live in a culture that treats consistency like proof of character. Stay on brand. Pick a lane, know your thing. Have a take. Have a position. A 5-year plan. Have a personal narrative that makes sense on a profile page. But actual growth is less elegant than that. It doubles back. It contradicts itself. It gets humbled. It changes after one conversation, one failure, one new tool, one heartbreak, one boring Tuesday where something you used to believe just stops feeling true. And no one claps for that part. No one sees the private update, the quiet shift, the moment you realize you no longer want what you kept saying you wanted, the moment you admit the dream was partly inherited. That is where the real flexibility lives. Not in the announcement, in the adjustment, not in the pivot post, in the pause before it, because there will be more shifts, more tools, more cultural moods, more moments where the map stops matching the street. And in those moments, the most human thing may not be certainty. It may be the quiet sentence. I am allowed to learn this differently now. Not perfectly, not instantly, differently. So here is the question I want to leave with you. Where in your life are you calling yourself stuck? But please also consider this as well. Could it be that you might, just might, be actually standing at the edge of a necessary update? Instead, this is an AI voice-powered podcast shared by humans who simply want to connect across generations and normalize the art of starting again. New episodes drop weekly. Share it with someone who's navigating their own pivot or who needs to hear that beginnings aren't failures. They're growth.